Right. Everything that we have seen here so far was designed and built purely to defend this. We call this the Norman Keep, or White Tower, built on the orders of a Frenchman. Yay! William, the Duke of Normandy, defeated our Saxon king, Harold II, at the Battle of Hastings on October the 15th, 1066. This date is known to everybody. It is the dawn of civilization. The French influence here in England turned us from barbaric, beer-swilling, baby-eating Saxon savages into the refined and cultured people we are today.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. At the year 1078, William had put down 12 years of rebellion and insurrection. His spin doctors were calling him the Conqueror. He felt safe enough to build his principal palace here in London. The work took 20 years. For nearly 500 years, our kings and queens lived on the top floor. The floor below was accommodation for their favoured knights and ladies. The lowest floor with windows, that's where the kitchens were. There is, of course, another floor. Now this one is partly below ground. The walls there are 15 feet thick. There are no windows. It's dark. We're close to the river. It's always damp and cold. This was the perfect place for the
dungeon.
The wine! Come on, it's a palace, hello! I told you at the beginning it was not built as a prison. You're getting obsessed now. Our first prisoner was a Frenchman by the name of Ranulph de Flambard. He was the Bishop of Durham. Would you lock a French bishop in a wine cellar? Come on! Lunatics. He was imprisoned in the top of that turret. The year was 1100. By 1101, he'd noticed his warders liked to drink. We still do. He threw them a party. He got them all drunk on wine brought up from the cellar in casks that were bound round by rope. That was common practice at the time. While the warders slept off this party, Ranulph removed the rope from these casks, and this ancient French bishop abseiled 90-odd feet on an improvised line and got away. Now you think we'd learn from that? Our first prisoner escaping. We didn't. In all, the Tower of London had 3,500 prisoners. Of these, 81 escaped. Might be the most famous prison in the world, but with an escape ratio of 1 in 42, it is demonstrably the least secure. We were rubbish. Not all the escapees were lucky. Another fella, Griffith ap Llewellyn, a Welsh prince, pulled a similar stunt from that turret, see? Slightly different, look you. He said, "Sheeby, I want clean sheets every day, isn't it?" This was unusual, particularly for a Welshman. But of course, he's tying his bedding together, and his rope work was appalling. When Griffith made his bid for freedom, his rope fell apart, and he plunged to his death by year. Where, as you can see, the daffodil, the national flower of Wales, bloomed forth in spring in a sea of yellow. Oh, it's poetry, isn't it? Now, you are quite right. By the turn of the 16th century, the wine rack had been put to one side and another rack had been installed. This rack had a very sinister purpose: torture. And torture is misunderstood. Many people think of torture as a punishment. It isn't. It just feels like one. Torture is a way to keep a conversation going. It's the turbocharge to an interrogation. Now, by far the most famous interrogation to take place here was that of Guy Fawkes. Guy Fawkes is famous in Britain for being the only man to have entered Parliament with honest and noble intentions. Certainly the only man to have entered Parliament with a clear agenda and the resources to see it through. You don't see that in government these days. He was going to blow the place up. He got caught. James I would have been killed in the blast, and he was desperately keen to know who was in Guy's gang. Guy said nothing. The interrogators asked if they could use torture. A torture warrant was signed. Only 48 of these had been issued. Torture did not take place without one. Guy Fawkes was bound by his wrists and ankles to 2 spindles. These were set in the rack, and by means of a ratchet mechanism, they turned in opposite directions, and so he began to stretch. This would cost you a fortune on a hell farm. On our rack, you could stretch a man nearly 4 inches. Yeah. At a 3-inch mark, all therapeutic value is lost. Right. Joints get pulled apart. Your joints are held together with ligament and tendon. It will be news to some of you that these are stronger than bone. When your joints get pulled apart, it is in fact your bones that break. Pain! Lots of pain! That's what we're talking about here. Are you okay? They all cracked on the rack. Now, some say Guy Fawkes didn't, but he did sign a confession. Still exists. Public Record Office at Kew. Go and see it. Signature is all over the place. That confession was as good as a death warrant. He was taken from here to Westminster Palace Yard. A commoner found guilty of treason, just like William Wallace. He was hanged, drawn, and quartered. Yeah. Unlike Wallace, he didn't suffer. So brutal had been his racking that as he made his way up the gallows steps, he collapsed and died. But they carried on anyway. This remains a place of torture. It's a gift shop now. On now to Tower Green and the heart of darkness in English history. Back.